Do we start? Okay, I see that we are live. I guess we are live. Can someone confirm we are live? Can you hear me?
Okay, Christine.
I suppose we are live now. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to this second plenary session of the AI4GOV working group. I'm Christine Kopers. I work for the federal service provider BOSA, DG Digital Transformation. I'm not going to bore you with practical information. You've been following sessions all week. You know they are in English. You know they are being recorded. You know you can ask your question in the chat and that we have a Q&A later on in the session. We have a fairly filled agenda this afternoon, so I'm not going to wait too long before we start in order to have give the speakers all the time that they need to present their PowerPoints. I would like to start with two things: a kind reminder of what the objectives are of the AI4GOV working group. We want to initiate the uptake of AI technologies in the public administrations, follow up on projects, share information, share experience, share knowledge, look for common projects that could be beneficial to different administrations. We want to inform on existing initiatives in general on AI in the public sector. That could be in other countries, that's best practices, benchmarking, stuff like that. We also contribute to the definition of an ethical and legal framework that we do with the Law and Ethics working group. And we study the impact of AI on the existing and future skills within the public administrations, which we do with another working group called the Future of Work. I was going to give you a status update on what's been going on since the kickoff meeting of the AI4GOV group on the November the 30th of last year. We were busy preparing for an AI4GOV hackathon, which unfortunately we have had to postpone already 3 or 4 times. And with the figures going the way they are, it doesn't look too good for the coming months. But anyway, we had a call for challenges and got 48 challenges from administrations and from public servants. 10 of those were selected by a jury. We also did our call for participants and teams, but as I said, it's not for the near future that we can organize it. We organized a couple of lunch talks. Paul Duan on citizen-led public services. There was Michel Herquet on open source AI tools. And of course, some of you may have seen the kickoff 2 days ago of the AI ethics assessment list tool project. That's a project that was initiated with the AI ethics and law working group and is started as an innovation lab within the BOSA administration. What else did we do? There was a best practices exchange between the national AI hubs from Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Belgium. And we are preparing a mapping survey on the state of AI in the public sector, but Joep is going to talk to you about this at the end of our session. What's coming up for the coming weeks and months? Of course, expand the activities of the AI4GOV working group. We want more participants. We have to establish a board, so there's still work to do there. We need to take our following next steps in the assessment list project. Workshops are going to follow. There's going to be a survey. There's going to be a second plenary session, and hopefully we'll end with a prototype or wireframes or a concept with which we can actually start building a workable tool. Let us hope that we can organize an AI4GOV hackathon as a real real-life 3-day event with 10 teams who work on these 10 challenges. By the end of the summer or the beginning of the autumn, we will be presenting the results of the survey that I just talked about. And we're considering setting up some kind of an inside-out, outside-in event with academia and the public sector, and have these two ecosystems talk to each other about what is going on in research and what are the needs of the public administrations. I think that's it for the very short status update on the AI4GOV working group. It is my pleasure now to introduce the first keynote speaker of this afternoon, Yves Poulet, whose resume reads like an encyclopedia. He's a member of the Royal Academy. He's an emerite professor of the Université de Namur, honorary rector, founder of CRITS. Everybody knows CRITS, the Research Center for Information Law and Society. He's co-chair of the Namur Digital Institute. He's associate professor at the Université de Lille, Catholique de Lille, pardon. I can keep on going, and he will talk to us about the state of AI in the public sector in Wallonia. Yves, the floor is yours, as they say.
Thanks, Christine, and good day to everybody. So I have a look at my, oh, it's disappeared. I don't see anymore. Where is it? That's here. Okay, so I start immediately, just it should be easier. Okay. Just to give you a very brief overview of what I will develop. First, I start with very general remarks: AI and public service, why, and which are the challenges we have to face as public service. The second point will be more interesting. I think there's a problem of governance of AI in Walloon region, and I would like to pinpoint a certain number of shortcomings of the present situation in Walloon region. And third, I would like to develop 4 topics in relation with AI in Walloon region: how to create big data within public sector and from public sector, the Smart Region initiative taken by Walloon region, the famous trail program just decided last year by the Walloon region as regard the scientific research, and finally, I want to say something about AI and public service, the legal aspects. So first, AI and public service. I start with 2 slogans. The first one is governing by and of AI. I think that's very important, by and of. And the second slogan is more hopes and dreams than achievements. Governing by, it's quite clear that AI will bring, we hope, a certain number of benefits to public administration. And I summarize so the benefits expected by administration. First, optimization. Optimization, it means 3 things from my point of view. It means first, improve the administration workflow. I think it creates a better efficiency within the administration. Second input, I think that AI will improve the definition of public policy. It is quite clear that the administration will have better data, and they will have also better tools to define that policy. And finally, I think that AI might be a good way for controlling the respect of the regulation or controlling the implementation of the regulation when it is a question of attributing, for example, social housing, when it is a question of tackling a fraudster. I think that AI might be a good thing. Security, I just pointed to predictive maintenance, but there are other things. And definitely objectivity, when you have to define your public strategy, for example, as regards mobility, it is quite clear that it is better to have AI system with a certain number of data than just to refer to the intuition or the subjectivity of certain governments, civil servants. And of AI, I think that's very important. We have in mind the fact that there are a lot of errors and bias which are possible when you are developing AI algorithms, or definitely when you use a certain database with bad quality of the data. And definitely it is very important that you must keep, as the ethics claims it, human in the loop and human on the loop. And finally, I say there are more hopes and dreams than achievements. And I would like just to go through a certain number of challenges the administration have to face when they would like to develop or to use AI system within their work. There is first an ethical challenge. Second point, there is a technological challenge. It is very difficult to know the algorithms you have to use, and definitely to arrange your data following the need of this algorithms and of this big data. The human being challenge, it is quite clear that the problem is not only a technological problem, there's also a question of social innovation. The skills challenge, that's a big problem within all the European administration. And we need to have civil servants who are trained for using AI system, for conceiving perhaps, but definitely for using AI systems. Other challenge, data challenge, the problem of data quality, the problem of legal challenge. Legal challenge, there is a lot of legal challenge. I will come back on that issue, but it is quite clear that you have problem with IP rights, you have problem of liability, and you have definitely problem of data protection, but you have also all the administrative regulation. For instance, administrative regulation claims that you are acting on a transparent basis, and that's not always very easy. Inequality challenge, measurement challenge, and finally, and I think that's very important, the societal acceptance challenge. How to ensure public participation, an open multi-stakeholders, multidisciplinary assessment of the development of the AI system within the public sector. So I come now to the problem of the governance of AI in Wallonia. And to start, I would like to develop what has been said in what we call DPR, the Regional Policy Declaration in 2019. The DRUPO government has adopted Digital Wallonia strategy, and he has said that this strategy must be based on a certain number of values. And it's quite interesting, cross-disciplinary approach. Very important that they've recognized that AI is not only a question of technical solution, but it's also a question of social acceptance and social, and to take into account social impact. Transparency, coherence, openness, and flexibility. And they have fixed 5 structured themes: digital sector, digital economy, connected and intelligent territory, public service, skills, and employment. And as you see, there are 2 themes which are directly connected with the problem of the public administration, smart cities and public service. I will come back on that issue. Second document, very important, is the administration memorandum to 2019, which identify 4 issues as regard digitalization strategy of the Walloon administration. And you see there on the slide These four issues. First, integration and co-construction of a digital strategy with full respect of the legal obligation. Secondly, implement innovative and inclusive digital governance, it means no exclusion. Third point, aligning human and budgetary resource with strategy. I think that's a very important practical question to have sufficient people and sufficient financial resource in order to start with the development of AI solution. And finally, the idea to have IT solution as regard different families of needs, and the families of this must be, for instance, development of chatbots, that it might be certain system for controlling the implementation of the legislation, and so and so. Always as regard the governance of AI, I think we have to notice the fact that Wallonia has developed a platform for accessing the achievement, the famous Digital Wallonia platform. I invite you to have a look at this Wallonia platform, very well designed and very user-friendly. This Digital Wallonia platform is hosted by Agence du Numérique, and she has four functions, as you see: inform people, offer a different service, provide services and support to public and private actors in order to facilitate their implementation of the digital strategy. And finally, that's also very important, to label different initiatives in order to permit to people, to citizens, and to companies to have the best practice in the region. In the context of this platform, there are specific pages which are dedicated to the Digital Wallonia for AI. And I think that's very important because you have there the list of the different initiatives as regards AI. And you have also the possibility to find there which kind of training are offered to public servants. You have a mention of the proof of concept initiative taken by the Walloon region, and I think that Julie will develop more about this topic. As for data governance, as I said, there are, in my opinion, a certain number of some shortcomings. The structure proposed by the Walloon region is not yet achieved. At the operational level, we have to mention the fact that a chief information officer has been nominated quite recently, it is 2 weeks ago, and that the Walloon region is setting up a CRO team around this person in order to coordinate all the efforts developed in the Walloon region. I think that's really very important, and definitely we have to mention the very important work done by EWBS, which is the Administrative Simplification and Digitization of the Administration Service of Wallonia, and the Federation of Wallonia Brussels, to initiate and support digital initiatives. Second point, we have developed that at the operational level. Now, what happens at the governance level? That's the decision taken by the cooperation agreement. You see that it has been signed in 2014, and this cooperation agreement has been signed between the Federation Wallonie-Brussels and the Walloon region. And that's quite interesting because this cooperation agreement is covering the public service at large. And what I would like to say by public service at large, I mean not only the administration, but also public interest organization. For example, IWEPS, which is the statistical office of the Walloon region, but also public companies like ORS, and also, and I think that's very important, the smart cities. I think that's very important that all these actors serving the public interest are working together, and that it is possible to envisage a coordination between all these actors in order to develop big data, in order to develop a common public service for the citizens and for companies. What is foreseen in this cooperation agreement? First, the setting up of a certain number of authentified data sources. You know this notion. Till now, there is only one authentified data source. That's not sufficient. I know that 5 are qualified. One about students, one about buildings, one about car homologation. That's not very important, but it is very important that we have at the Walloon region certain data sources which are of very good quality. That's very important, not only for the administration, but also for the companies and for the citizens. The second institution set up by this cooperation agreement is the BCED, the Crossroad Bank for Exchanging Data. It's a very crucial function. It means that through this Crossroad Bank, you can ensure a certain number of data flows between the different administration and the different public companies. And finally, you have the Conferring Commission for Data Exchange, which is an institution created near the parliament, attached to the 2 parliaments, the Federation Walloon-Brussels and Walloon Region. And this control commission is normally there for authorizing data processing within the public sector. This commission has not yet been set up. It's a big loophole when you have a comparison with what happens in the Flemish community with the Vlaams Toezicht Commission, which is, in other words, the DPA for the Flemish community. I think we really need to have a CCED in Wallonia in order to have this also this DPA in our region. For specific areas, if I'm not speaking too much, for specific areas, the first one is the problem of the creation of big data within or from public sector. And on that point, I think I have first to say that big data is definitely a condition of AI. So that's very important to create this big data. And this big data might be created through G2G data flows. It means to create internal megadata within the administration and the public service. And there are a certain number of obstacles to create this big data. First, obstacles as the culture of silos, the fact that each administration works with its own data, and all this data have their own structure and their own format. So it is quite difficult to create data flows between these different administration and public service. And definitely there is also a need for a chief information officer in order to coordinate and to create initiative of these data flows. As regards B2G, that's very interesting. The idea developed by European Union is to say the following idea. Administration normally is conceived only as a provider of data, provider to private sector, but in the future, it must be also conceived as a data receiver from the private sector. I mean, for instance, that Uber and Airbnb might contribute actively to public decision, for example, as regards Uber on the mobility, the definition of the mobility policy, and Airbnb definitely as regards the problem of the problem of housing and the policy of housing in the different cities. So the idea would be to have in Wallonia what we call a reverse PSI. Reverse PSI. PSI is the movement from public sector to private sector. Reverse PSI is the movement of data from the private sector to the public sector. There are a certain number of stakeholders, and definitely I will not comment on that issue. The last point as regards the problem of big data is definitely the problem of G2C and B. It means the problem of open data exploitation of data held by public service. It is very important to notice that the EU directives of 2019 has not yet been transposed. And I think it's very important for the administration to develop an open data policy, not only for democratic reason, transparency of the government, in order to allow the citizen control, not only for economic reasons, to provide reliable data to companies for the development of their business, but also for internal reasons. I think that in order in developing open data policy, the administration will have an incentive to improve and modernize the public authority's information system. And on that point, I am of opinion that one region would have to adopt the famous FAIR principle. And you know what I mean, FAIR principle, that the idea that all the data must be findable, that must be accessible, that they must be interoperable and reusable. Okay, the second point, the smart region policy. You know the development of smart cities. In Wallonia, there are a certain number of smart cities. And the idea of the region was to create a new governance model for smart cities in Wallonia. Smart cities are local initiatives. The idea of the smart region policy is to have a sort of couple which will act as support framework to consolidate the coherence, the acceleration, and the visibility for projects developed by towns and cities. And I think that's very, very important. And there are a certain number of principles which have been developed by the famous smart region policy. First, bottom-up approach, very important. Secondly, the importance to ensure in all the smart cities the effective cooperation between multiple actors. Finally, to have the platform managed by the city, but also the possibility for citizens to have participation in the development of these smart cities. And you see all the smart region is developing the structure of their action. First, the structure with the cities themselves, They have a second point with the Smart Region Advisor, with the Smart City Institute, Futurosité, and eCampus. And finally, they are developing a certain number of working group working on different thematics: smart mobility, smart energy, smart governance, e-health, and so. I would like now to come this my last time. No, I have still another slide. But as we have the research, I would like to underline the creation of a research institute which brings together the 5 universities, Agence du Numérique, and 4 centers of excellence. This research institute is called TRAIL, and they have a good budget with million of euros. And the idea of the Walloon region, it has been decided in December of last year, and so that's very, very recent. And the idea of the Walloon region is to develop innovative research, which is linked with the skills of the different participants, but also in close connection with the economic fabric of the region. And definitely, the idea of this research institute is to bring certain exploitation of their results for profit, and in particular for Walloon companies. Our last slide. The problem of the legal constraints. And, I have to say that we are working at the CRITs on this legal constraints. The idea is to create, as you see, the study which has been committed to us by ADM, is to go to a legal and ethical framework for Walloon public service using the benefits of a region and its citizens. And we are dealing with a lot of legal questions. I can come back during the discussion about all this problem, and a lot of specific to the public authorities, intellectual property questions, data protection issues, liability questions, and finally, and that's a real problem, how to adapt public procurement legislation to the development of AI systems within the public sector. We know that the public sector is, for the moment, unable to develop himself the AI system, so it needs the cooperation of a certain number of private companies, or to do that this cooperation will meet the specific problem of the public sector. Okay, Christine, I'm sorry, perhaps I've been too long.
No, it's fine.
Thanks a lot.
It's fine, thank you, Yves. You made you let me make the bridge to the next speaker. As you mentioned, the Digital Wallonia strategy in the beginning of your keynote, and you talked about the Digital Wallonia for AI program. Our next speaker is Julie de Bergeyck. It's my pleasure to introduce her. She joined Agoria to coordinate this Digital Wallonia for AI program. Julie started her career in the United States, where she worked for 9 years in the field of digital communications and new media, largely or mainly for McCann Erickson. McCann, as you may or may not know, is still the world's leading ad agency network today. They still exist. Back in Belgium, she continued to work for a number of large companies. She joined an NGO to coordinate a European funded research project, but eventually returned to the private sector to manage projects that promote new technologies. I have the feeling that's her passion. Julie is going to give us an insight in the Digital Wallonia for AI program. Julie?
Thank you, Christine, for these kind words. I'm honored to be one of the speakers in this distinguished panel before me and then after. So I have Well, I'm very glad actually to be talking more about Digital Wallonia for AI. As Professor Yves Poulet mentioned it, you should be able to see my screen, I hope. Yes?
Okay.
Yes, okay, good. And so as you can see, the mission of Digital Wallonia for AI, this program is very simple. It's to promote the adoption of AI in Wallonia and strengthen its ecosystem. And it was initiated by the Minister of Digital Affairs in July 2019, a little bit less than 2 years ago. And it is supported by the 4 actors that you can see on screen: Agence Numérique, Infopole, Agoria, Réseau, IA. What I wanted to tell you mainly is that since its inception, the program is articulated around 4 pillars, and each of them offers very concrete actions that can help organizations wishing to incorporate AI into their business. Let me review them with you. The first one is more about creating awareness with AI and society. And there, for example, you have the Carrefour de l'IA. I don't know if the audience have heard about them. Every 3rd Thursday of each month, we have them. And the goal of these webinars is to really inform any interested person about what is going on in AI, not only in business, but also in research, because it's co-organized by TRAIL. TRAIL, again, was mentioned by Professor Poulet. Then there's also elements of AI that we actively help promote, that citizens online course. And then Professor Poulet, you didn't really talk a lot about the study that you are doing for Digital Wallonia for AI, about looking at the impact of AI on the public sector. And so the second pillar is about companies. And there again, we have quite a few tools, very concrete tools that are at the disposal of companies. And you will see that the announcement that I have later on is linked to these tools. It's about Startia. A third important pillar is about skills, and Professor Poulet said it. Skills is for sure very is critical. I mean, how can you implement AI or even understand it if you don't if you don't have any idea what it is about? And so Numeria, which regroups the different centers of competence, les technifutures, les technofutures, etc., have created Numeria, and they offer some different programs that are available for the business audience, but wider also. And then we also promote AI in business, sustainable AI in business, which are online courses that are free online courses that are available. And then finally, we go to the fourth pillar. And there, a year and a half ago, we wouldn't have the mention research. Now it's there, as was mentioned earlier. Indeed, the fourth pillar was strengthened thanks to the existence of TRAIL, which is a really very strong program in the making, and headed by Benoît Mac, Thierry Dutoit, and many others. And you can see them here on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, you see all the partners whom we are working on. And it's important to say, if you remember what I told you in the beginning, the mission is of promoting AI in Wallonia can't be done by single actors. You really need to have a strong ecosystem that is working together into the same direction. And we are happy to have these partners on board with us. Now, let me get into the heart of the matter. And I have the privilege to announce the launch of a new tool designed for the public sector. I hope they are very present today. If some of you are part of a public entity in Wallonia, whichever it is, If you are curious about AI, but you don't really know what it is about, or you're interested by it, and you don't really clearly know how to investigate, well, Startia may be a tool that's for you. It was developed originally to help organizations identify opportunities within their company. And based on the learnings that we have done with these companies, we're now going to do this with the public sector. And so, for example, if you are part of a public sector and you wonder, how can I improve my recruitment, HR recruitment process? How can I improve my services to citizens? Or internal processes, or my productivity, or even better detect fraud, or do some predictive maintenance, optimize the use of raw material, and so on and so on. These are just some problems that could eventually be tackled with AI solutions. And so, concretely, what is Startia? Startia aims to put public sector organizations in contact with AI expert companies for a very short mission of 3 to 4 days. And we assign interested organization with an AI expert company. So the public entity doesn't even have to choose. We propose them somebody, and they will both meet several times to identify together some potential opportunities. And as you can see on the right-hand side, the mission is really all about that for those 3 or 4 days. It can be about analyzing possible ROI, return on investment, potential players that can help out, or even developing an action plan. And as you can see, it's a definitely low-cost plan, because the beneficiary or the public entity only pays 1,500 euros, and Digital Wallonia for AI will subsidize 2,500. So totaling 4,000 for a 3 to 4 day mission. And if you're interested, this call will open beginning of April. So again, this call will open beginning of April and will end 6 weeks later, which means 15th of May. And given this is rather a test, only 10 organizations will be chosen, will be selected in the beginning, and the missions will happen from June until end of September. And again, it's a really easy process. It takes about only 10 minutes to register. And so far, we have had over 140 companies who have done Startia or Tremplin IA. Tremplin IA is it's next level. That's more like about really testing AI. It's about financing proof of concepts. Anyway, in those two programs, we've seen an overwhelmingly positive reaction and feedback. And that's why we really wanted to offer this and test it with the public sector. So we hope we'll get quite a few answers from you. And this brings me to my last slide. As I said, I could not resist the temptation to talk about the launch of a brand new online course, which I've been personally involved. I'm going to try to launch a teaser. I'm not sure the sound is going to be there, so bear with me. Let's try. So as the teaser showed it, it's an online course that was developed by companies, for companies. You wonder, why is this in an AI4GOV session? Well, there's many topics that are in the matter also related, and Professor Poulet talked about them. It's all those aspects, non-technical aspects, legal, ethical, organizational, human aspects that are important to take into account when you implement AI. Even if it's far away from your field, it may be applicable. It only takes an hour and a half, and you can just go to this URL. That ends presentation, I'm sorry, with the contact information of my colleague and myself. And obviously, we are just representing the whole team behind, as mentioned earlier, Agence du Numérique, Infopole, Réseau IA, and Agoria. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Julie. And thank you for the scoop. It's always nice to have a scoop in a session like this.
Did I answer? Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay. As we are very much in favor of gender equality, we always aim at 50%. My next guest is Anaïs van Obergen. I hope I pronounce it correctly. She's the lead of the data analytics team at the Brussels CIRB, Centre d'Informatique pour la Région Bruxelloise. And she works on the implementation of regional data platform and the setup of data analytics and AI Center of Excellence for the Brussels region. It's a context in which she works with public entities, identifying and implementing advanced use analytics and AI use cases. Anaïs is going to tell us a few things about what's going on in the Brussels region. Anaïs?
Yes, thank you very much. I will share my screen. I think you should see it.
Yes, we see it.
Yes, and I will turn off my video because the sound keeps breaking up on my side. So I will organize this presentation in 3 parts. First, a presentation of some initiatives to support AI in Brussels. Then a few words on the regional data strategy. And finally, a few examples of ongoing projects by public actors in Brussels. So the overview of public and semi-public initiative is based on an inventory made by Innoviris, and which covers a lot of topics from financing to training to collaboration with academia. And you can find it at artificialintelligence.brussels. To begin a little bit of context, Brussels started investing in AI in 2016 with the first call to project focusing on AI. And this call for project resulted in 12 million in subsidies. Since then, the support to AI project has continued and 30 million have been invested. Support to digital entrepreneurship is part of the 2025 strategy, and AI and the management of big data have been identified as one of the 3 technological sectors in the digital transition, together with IoT and virtual reality. The first type of support to AI is through financing, and we have mainly 2 public actors involved. First, Innoviris, which supports startups, scale-up, and SME, but also larger companies. Innoviris contributed to initiatives related to AI for around 27 to 30 millions. And it has done that through different funding mechanisms like innovation vouchers, proof of business, R&D program, and academic programs. In terms of financing, there is also Finance and Invest, which also supports startups, scale-up, and SME, but with a focus on 5 specific teams. And it supports those projects through different financing mechanisms like equity participation, loans, and guarantees. And you can find concrete examples at finance.brussels. In terms of support accompaniment, Brussels supports startups, scale-up, SME, but also larger company, as long as they have an impact on Brussels. And it supports them in several ways. First, the 1819 Brussels service, which provide information regarding legal, administrative, accommodation, financing, commercial, and other questions. Then Hub is also support companies with advisory services, for example, for questions related to strategy, but also legal, administrative, and so on. And it also supports companies for international development, for example, through its export team and European programs. Some services at Hub are organized by clusters, and Software Brussels and LifeTech Brussels, two of those clusters already have organized events around AI. And since its creation, Hub supported 45 companies exploring or using AI, for example, Colibra, Quantify, Rockestate, Sagacify, and others. Regarding accompaniment, there is also Elucidata, which is part of CIRIS, which is a non-profit center whose mission is to support the Belgian technology industry with their innovation projects. And there are also a few public incubators in Brussels, including ICAB, which is the most important incubator in the field of digital engineering, and which support a startup from the implementation of their project to the development of a sustainable company. So academic initiative, first the AI Experience Center in Etterbeek, which is a joint project of 4 research teams from the VUB. Its objective is to open the potential of AI to industries, students, researchers, and the general public. In general, there is a lot of activity around AI in Brussels, 13 research laboratories with around 600 members working on AI. And some of those laboratories have been active for quite some time. And a new initiative was announced Monday, FARI, the AI for the Common Good initiative. 10 million will be invested by the region. Its objective is to help the public sector, citizen, companies, and non-profits with the challenge linked to this new technology. And it will be organized in 3 hubs: a research and innovation hub, a think tank on AI data and society, and AI test and experience hub. In terms of training, B Central and its technology-oriented campus play an important role. They have the 7-month AI bootcamp and AI Black Belt, which offers different paths, whether you're interested mostly in the technological aspect of AI or mostly in the business aspects. And there is also the AI Doctoral School, which offers a seminar for students doing a doctoral thesis. Series is also involved in training companies. The Skydive platform is being developed, and its goal is to help companies acquire the necessary knowledge and skills step by step. And there is also the data innovation behind the hype organized by Elucidata Lab, which is also part of Series. So those were just a few initiatives in the region. It was not a complete inventory, especially because this is a sector that is changing rapidly, and new projects are started frequently. The second part of this presentation today is related to the regional data strategy that is being developed in Brussels. The strategy has 3 main focus: the development of regional data governance, the implementation of a data exchange platform, and the development of competencies in advanced analytics and AI. Regarding the data platform, the first goal of building a regional data platform is, of course, to provide infrastructures and tools to support Brussels public entities with their big data project. For some of them, especially the smaller one, they would not have the resources to develop and maintain this solution. The goal also is to align tools and practices and to make economies of scale. But the main goal really is to promote data sharing and promote projects that involves multiple public actors, which are often the projects that could have the biggest impact. The platform is developed by the Brussels Regional Informatics Center, and it can be summarized in 3 blocks. The platform has an integration hub that will facilitate data sharing and reusing data flows. The platform has a data hub, which is a data lake and an analytic platform to support the development of advanced analytics and AI projects. And finally, the platform has a data catalog to better communicate regarding available data, its meaning, its quality, and the conditions to access it. And of course, this catalog will be linked to the open data catalog of the region. Of course, it is necessary to build next to this platform a regional data governance strategy. So a regional data office will be created, and it will have the role of working with all administration to define a regional data governance framework. And it will also help smaller administration or less mature administration in terms of data governance. The goal is first to organize the sharing of data in the region by better defining the roles and responsibility of producers, consumers, and custodians of data. It is also to work on developing standards and reference to facilitate the reuse of data. It's also important to build trust by working on data quality, and of course, to make sure that all this sharing and reuse of data is done in compliance with data protection and security rules. Another block that is being built next to this data platform is an expertise in advanced analytics and AI. Data scientists and engineers who will work with the public entities of the region to develop use cases. The team is already working with several administrations in the region, promoting a co-building approach. The goal is to develop the competencies in the region to better identify the question, problems, and service that data analytics and AI can help improve, to better understand the competencies that need to be to support these use cases, but also to understand which type of use cases are specific to our administration and on which they should invest time, but also how to collaborate with private actors. And of course, aligning practice will also allow discussion on topics related to ethics, inclusivity, and transparency. A few use cases are already in development on this platform with the team. A first use case that is developed is an automated detection of road defect to help identify and prioritize road repairs. The pilot is developed by Brussels Mobility, the Belgian Center for Road Research, and the Brussels Regional Informatics Center. The data used is a combination of image and LiDAR data from a mobile mapping campaign. So on the left side of the screen, you can see a segment of the Chaussée Nav combining all data. And on the right side, you can see a slice of the same road simplified in 2D, and that is kind of stretched upwards to better see the defect in the road. And at the moment, the team is looking to identify routes. And the team is testing 2 methods, a traditional machine learning method that requires to define rules, which can take some time, but also can make it a bit easier to link the result to existing classifications. And a second method, a convolutional neural network that doesn't require this definition of rules, but requires more training and is more difficult to explain. And it seems that the solution will probably combine the 2 methods. And this second method is useful because it will also be used for our next use case. So based on the same data from the mobile mapping campaign, the goal of this use case is to identify public assets like road signage and trees. The automatic detection of these assets would be useful to maintain inventories, but also for predictive maintenance by comparing the data from different mobile mapping campaign. And other use cases are also considered, like monitoring the health of the trees by, for example, measuring how they lean. Another interesting use case project independent of the platform is the Munstrom project. So Munstrom PCP is the first European PCP on people flow analytics. The PCP is the first step of an innovation procurement. It is a project that is supported by Innoveris and which involves 4 buyers in the region: Brussels Mobility, Parking Brussels, the STIP MIVB, and the Brussels Regional Informatic Center. It is a project, the goal of this project is to develop innovative solution for the outdoor and indoor monitoring and management of people flow. La Monnaie plane has been selected because it's a good mix of indoor and outdoor zone, and because it involves private actors and public actors, including public transport. So these 3 ongoing projects are just examples of projects developed in the region. Several public administration are designing and working on AI projects, but these examples show that these developments are done in a spirit of collaboration between administration, so that the resources and lessons are shared, and that the administration of the region progress together, and sometimes with partners outside the region on these technologies and the challenges that comes with them. So this is it for the presentation. Thank you very much.
Hey, Anaïs, thank you very much. That was a very impressive list of initiatives that you gave us here. And now, last but not least, we have our 3rd keynote speaker by Hans Arends. I think everybody knows Hans. Hans is a senior advisor, digital government in the Flanders Information Agency, Agentschap Informatie Vlaanderen. And that's the agency that's tasked with the transformation of the Flemish regional government and local governments into a digital and data-driven government. He's responsible for formulating forward-looking e-government policy, and he encourages far-reaching innovation in digital public service delivery. Lately, he's been assessing the impact of artificial intelligence and big data analytics on the policy priorities and on the operational processes of government. And of course, he's going to give us a view on what's happening in Flanders. Hans?
Okay, thank you for inviting me. I'm going to launch my presentation. I hope you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So as I said, thank you for inviting me to this panel. I didn't know I was supposed to give a keynote. I'm only prepared a presentation to give you a short overview of what's happening as far as AI is concerned in the Flemish government. So the use of AI in the Flemish government. To understand where I come from, as was already explained, I work for the Agency for Informatie Vlaanderen, the Flanders Information Agency. The mission of this agency is to organize and make useful all digital information in order to continuously improve together the services provided by government. That means that we're also, of course, interested and involved in the use of AI in government. It is true that we do not have a specific AI in government plan, but in Flanders we do have a Flemish policy plan on artificial intelligence, which was already started in 2019, which invests about 32 million per year in artificial intelligence. This policy plan has 3 tracks: a research track to strengthen strategic basic research in AI, an industry track to stimulate the use of AI in all sectors, and a society track to raise awareness, to provide training and education, and to try to develop an ethical framework for AI. What you may notice is that in this Flemish policy plan on artificial intelligence, there is not a specific section or a specific investment foreseen into using AI in government. That doesn't mean that nothing is being done on AI in Flemish government, but it's not a specific priority of this Flemish policy plan. What we do have is, as part of this policy plan, is efforts towards using AI for the benefit of society and individuals, which consists of 3 tracks. There is a skills track with the Flemish AI Academy, and a number of efforts in providing training to companies in using AI. There's an ethics track where we started the Knowledge Center for Data and Society, and there is a public outreach track where there are various activities to try to raise awareness about the possibilities and the dangers of AI in the public mind. Now, what's important for the government is the work that's being done by this Knowledge Center for Data and Society, because they're not only looking at the challenges of using AI in companies, but they're also looking at the challenges of using AI in government. So they provide a lot of input to help us formulate government policy on AI. And that's one of the responsibilities of my agency. We support the steering committee on Flemish ICT and information policy. And that steering committee is the organization or the policy council, which is responsible for formulating information and ICT policy for the whole of the Flemish government. Now, what are the possible uses that we see of AI in the Flemish government? We see 3 main domains, similar to what other speakers have already said. We see a lot of opportunities towards process improvement. So we're experimenting with chatbots to improve the electronic service delivery. We're experimenting with robotic process automation to automate and make more intelligent the processes in the back end of our government operations. We certainly see a lot of promise as far as the use of AI is concerned in decision support. So improving how we make decisions, how we execute on those decisions, and how we evaluate those policy decisions, typically using techniques such as machine learning, deep learning, and of course also using data mining to make more use of all the data that we have in government, and text mining, because government produces a lot of texts, a lot of legal texts, and we sometimes have a difficulty keeping track of all that text. What we see as future applications is we also see a lot of promise in the use of smart sensors. There are already a number of places where smart sensors are being used to monitor, for example, the water level or other environmental characteristics, which will help us to mitigate the effects of climate change. And so we certainly look forward to this Internet of Things time, when a lot of devices will be sending a lot of information towards government so that we better understand what's happening in the environment around us. Now, how do we stimulate the use of AI in the Flemish government? There are two main ways of stimulating the use of AI in Flemish government. We have a specific program, PIO, Programma Innovatieve Overheidsopdrachten, so a program to stimulate innovative government procurement, where we formulate specific challenges, and then it's up to the enterprises to try to address those challenges. And in a lot of cases, those challenges are being addressed by using artificial intelligence. Another way of stimulating the use of AI in the Flemish government is what we call Sandbox Flanders. So we have a sandbox, which means that we invite smart startups and scale-ups to present their new technologies. And so a lot of these startups come to us with their AI tools, and then we look where those tools can be used. To give you some idea of the uses we make of AI in the Flemish government, I will highlight a number of examples. A first example is we use AI to improve the job matching at the VDAB, the Flemish Employment Agency. So what we do there is we try to improve the existing job matching engine JobNet, which underlies the website of the VDAB, so that we can improve the matching based on the profiles of the people seeking work, their preferences, also using similarities between the job seekers. So if somebody has found a job in a particular area, he might also be interested in a similar job in another area, even if he doesn't think of that himself. The challenge there, of course, is to avoid any bias in the results. So we have to be very careful that the gender of the job seeker or his origin does not unduly influence the kind of jobs that we propose to him. The technology used there is deep learning, basically calculating similarities between job seekers and job offers. It's also a self-learning algorithm in the sense that it takes into account the job seeker's search behavior. So we keep track of what kind of jobs are being watched, or what kind of jobs does he or she read on the website of the VDAB, and we take those into consideration to suggest similar jobs. So basically, information about profiles, jobs, and interests of the job seeker is used to train a deep neural network, and then we determine matching scores which help us to better match job offers to job seekers. There's cross-lingual matching in the sense that a vacancy in French can be matched to through a profile in Dutch, so that's possible. And there's also a fuzzy matching in the sense that, for example, when a particular job offer asks for a formal proof of fluency in English, we can, for example, say that she has worked at an English-speaking company, so you can assume that she has some knowledge of English, so why not consider her as well as a valuable job applicant. We're also using artificial intelligence to improve the call handling at our 1700 call center. So our call center is a very important means of supporting the less digitally skilled users of our services, and we try to improve call handling by helping call center operators in answering questions. So we try to improve the matching of a question that is being posed by somebody who is looking for help and the answers. So that means that we try to use artificial intelligence to recognize the intent. What does the person behind the phone want to know, and the sentiments also of the caller. Is he angry? Is he excited? So that we know how to deal with his questions. It's also being used to better forecast future demand. So by looking at the type of questions we have had in the past regarding certain subjects, we can try to predict how many questions we may expect if we have a similar subject in the future. How is that being done there? That we're using natural language processing. So the challenge there is to develop speech-to-text models for what you might call Flemish. Flemish doesn't really exist, but our Dutch is quite different from the Netherlands Dutch. So what we see there is a certain lack of pre-trained language models for Dutch, and we have the additional problem that we have to deal with a number of local dialects. So our natural language processing has to be able to understand those local dialects. Another challenge is these calls are typically not that long, so they are short audio fragments of limited quality. So it's very hard to train the AI to interpret those audio fragments. That's not the only place where we see uses of AI at the 1700 call center. So it's we're using chatbots to support the call center operators. We use AI to transcript what's being asked into text so that that text can be automatically transcribed and recorded. We use AI to determine what kind of additional questions the call center operator has to ask so that he can better understand the problem of the citizen calling the call center. So these are the more data-driven uses of AI. A specific use of AI is the use of AI on all the image data that we have. These are things which are being done inside my agency, because the Flanders Information Agency is also responsible for the collecting geographical data on Flanders. So we have a cell inside the agency which uses AI to interpret image data. First example of that is what we call the solar map of Flanders. So we have image data, an altitude model of Flanders, which gives you altitudes of all the buildings in Flanders. We have a map of all the buildings in Flanders, and we have also information about the solar irradiance, how much sunlight does a building receive in the course of a year, and on the basis of that, we can determine what will be the average solar irradiance of a roof. And so we can determine how well a roof is orientated in order to install our solar panels. Using that data, we have developed a website where any Flemish citizen can go to, can see an image of his house and of his roof, and get an idea of how suitable his roof is for the installation of solar panels, and how much solar energy he may expect to be collecting during the course of a year. Another example of the use of all the image data that we have available is for supporting the circular economy. We're using several data sources such as LiDAR and indoor images in order to automatically determine what are the different components, what are the different materials that the house is made of, so that when the house is teared down and replaced by a new house, we can recycle as much as possible the materials which were present in the house. So we determine the number of bricks, the number of windows, the number of, if there is asbestos in the roof, and that helps us in improving the recyclability of the house. So those were examples of the use of AI in the Flemish government. As I said, there is not a targeted AI in Flemish government plan, but we do have an approach of having a lot of experimentation with AI inside the different departments and agencies of the Flemish government. What we certainly have already started to realize is that in order to have a successful use of artificial intelligence in government, we will have to do 4 things. First of all, we will have to train our staff. So we believe that the goal should be that 20% of government employees should be able to work in data and information-driven roles using AI. If we want to become a data-driven government, that means that our government employees must have the necessary competences. Where, of course, all of this is dependent on the availability on data. So we must be aware that government data must be of a sufficient quality to be used as a resource. So we're also investing in the creation of authentic data sources like the balloon government. And we also focus on providing open data so that our government data can also be used by companies or citizens outside of government. In order to be successfully use that data, we of course have to standardize. The data has to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. For that purpose, we are developing the Flemish Oslo semantic data standards, which make it more easy to understand what data is about and to reuse that data not only inside government, but also outside of government. And then finally, we realize that we will have to be able to guarantee trust towards the citizen, that we use these artificial intelligence techniques in a way that does not harm him. So we're looking for best practices in efficient AI and also the application of the guidelines for trustworthy AI as they have been formulated by the European Commission. So we're certainly behind the effort of trying to develop a Belgian tool that will allow us to apply these guidelines for trustworthy AI inside government. And then finally, as a policy advisor, what I certainly believe to be the main challenge for policy towards the use of AI in government is that we should focus on the ethical use of AI. That has to be a policy priority. I think it has been said at several occasions during this week already that government should be a model. We have to be certainly showing or providing a good example of the ethical use of AI so that we can convince companies to do the same. And we have to realize that as government becomes more driven by data, it will also become more controlled by algorithms. It's not just the data that's important, but we will become what's sometimes called an algorithmic government, where by proactive service delivery or the automatic calculation of whether you are entitled to something, more and more will be done by smart algorithms. So that means that we have to focus on 2 things when using these algorithms. We must provide transparency. We have to provide insight into how these algorithms were created and how they work, so that we can at least try to prevent something from going wrong. And we also need to have accountability, because sooner or later something certainly will go wrong. And so we have to be able to explain why something went wrong. A nice example of an effort in that direction is the algorithm register, which was started by the city of Amsterdam, where you can find an overview of all the algorithms that they use as a local government, with a clear explanation of their purpose, how they work, what the benefits are, and what the risks are. So I would certainly appreciate having an algorithm register like that for the Flemish government as well. To conclude, as a policy advisor, I am certainly looking forward to European legislation on AI, because that will determine to a large degree the framework in which we will have to operate as a regional government. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Okay, Hans. Thank you for this very interesting overview, which brings us to the end of the first part of the session of today, giving everyone insight on the regional initiatives. This brings us to the Q&A. I notice in the chat that there haven't been much questions so far. Let me go through them for a second. Can I ask all the speakers to put on their cameras, please? I would like to start with a specific question, Hans. You're talking about training your staff and attaining at least a 20% volume of people who need to be able to work in data and in information-driven roles. In what time frame do you think that would be possible?
In what time frame?
To attain the 20%.
Yeah, that may take a legislature or more. I think. First of all, we've already tried to raise the overall digital awareness so that they're aware of what's digitally possible. Fortunately, there are now a lot of AI courses available, both at the international level and at the Belgian level. So that's one of the first things they can do. But then they can follow, but then tackling the specific challenges of AI in government, I think we will first have to look at what has already been, how AI has already been used in government, so that we learn more about the specific challenges of using AI in government.
Yeah. Because this pertains, of course, to the whole issue of the skills and the future skills of the public sector. Yves, do you have a view on that, on the skills? Or someone else, Anaïs, Denis? No?
Yes, no.
Okay.
I think Julie has spoken about training, and so perhaps she has something to say.
Yes, but I wouldn't be able to know
which kind of person.
Yeah, and how long it will take to train. If that was the question, huh? How long it would train?
Yeah.
How long it would take to get to a 20% volume of your
servants.
I have a question for all of you. Do you have the feeling that, well, if you look at one hand, you have the whole technological evolution that goes very fast. In a way, we should be able to say that anything that has to do with policy making, budgets, legislation, etc., that needs to be done. Procurement should follow almost in the same at the same speed. Do we even have the politicians and the people who are technically savvy enough to keep understanding what is happening, and in how much is that potentially a problem? Or is that a dangerous question? Anyone?
Just to answer to your question, I fear that not a lot of politicians are aware of what happens, and then they have a certain number of ideas, but they have no concrete example of what happens. And I had precisely a question for Hans on that issue, because he has spoken a lot about ethical aspects, and I think that's a good way for improving the public discussion about AI. But does he see this public participation? Do you see to have a certain number of parliamentarian discussion on that issue? Do you see a consensus conference with a certain number of citizens? Or do you see this possibility for people to discuss about what happens?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think when we are creating an algorithm that's probably going to be based on a certain piece of legislation. So the first thing which has to happen is that the legislation itself is ethical, is equitable. So that's something which has to be decided in Parliament, whether the legislation does not discriminate on people. So that's I think where the parliamentarians have to do their job to be certain that what's been written in legislation does not discriminate or contains bias in any way. Yeah, that's what I would call the first step. And then the second step is, we the IT people, we will have to be tasked then with transforming that legislation into an algorithm. So we'll have to translate the legislation in an algorithm. Either it's straightforward in the sense that it's a deterministic algorithm. We can basically say that, okay, the legislation contains a lot of if then else rules. Okay, then it's easy to make the algorithm. And it's a one-on-one mapping between the legislation and the algorithm. If the legislation says no, you have to do something smart with your data, and on the basis of that data, you have to decide whether somebody is cheating on with his allowances or something like that. Yeah, then we're in a more difficult domain, because then we have an algorithm which will be trained on data.
Yeah.
We have to guarantee that there is no bias in the data. That we have to guarantee that no bias emerges during the training of the algorithm. So I think before the algorithm can be put into production, there is certainly a need for perhaps a moment of co-creation, where we say, this is the algorithm, this is what it does with the data, this is the conclusions that it tries to reach, and that we ask for, I don't know, interested citizens to have a say about, is this a good algorithm or not? That's why I like this idea of algorithm registries, where you at least register the algorithms that you use, that you try to describe as best as possible what the algorithm does, what data it uses, what conclusions it reaches, so that the interested public can react to that. Interested citizens to have a say about.
Sorry, we have lost you.
I've lost you?
Oh no, you're back.
I'm back.
You're back.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why we are working with the AI ethics and law group on the assessment ethical assessment list tool, which will be a work which we hope will turn into a workable tool for anyone who wants to start using algorithms or building them or buying them, to assess that these algorithms are indeed fair and trustworthy. That's why that project is for us is very important. I see a question in the chat. See two questions actually from Lorenzino Vaccari. Do you have any procurement guideline or plan to have it for AI? So I presume we are going to the fields of innovative procurement. But also a second question: what is your impression about the effect of AI in public services with respect to the digital divide? That's a very good question. Do AI-based solutions help reducing it, or do they help increasing it?
Two nice questions. As regards the problem of guidelines and procurement guidelines, I would like to have procurement guidelines. I see a lot of problems because definitely AI is not a public procurement as another one. In most of the public procurement, you know that you have to have this kind of product, that you have this kind of service, and that's quite easy to define that. But when you are working with AI, you do not know exactly where you are going to. And so that's quite difficult. And definitely there are other questions. For example, as we are the problem of intellectual property, where when you are using an algorithm and data procured by private sector, it is quite clear that this private sector might say, okay, but I have intellectual property on that. And definitely it creates a lot of problems as regards the obligation for the public sector to be transparent and, for example, to publish the way by which, as Hans said, the way by which the AI system is functioning. It creates a lot of problems. As we got the problem of the effect of AI in public service, I know that in France, they are working on the idea to create a certain local agency in order to help citizens, poor citizens, or citizens which are not working with computer, to be able to work with AI system. And I think that's perhaps that's a good solution. Yeah.
Okay, I see another good question, and I'm going to watch the time because we still have 2 words to say about the survey, and I see Nathaniel has joined us, and he's going to do the closing now. I see a question from a colleague, Frank. A specific question for Hans. Is a citizen that calls the call center informed upfront that his emotions are being analyzed?
That's a good question there, because that's sometimes a right which people say that should be introduced, the right to be notified that you are being contacted or being analyzed by artificial intelligence. For the time being, this has been a proof of concept project. So it has been applied to already recorded conversations. So there is no point in warning the citizen that because he doesn't know that his recording has been used for that purpose. But I can imagine that when we go in production with this, you have a similar, like when you're being warned that the conversation will be recorded for quality purposes. I can imagine that you get an additional warning that but not perhaps formulated as strongly as your emotions are being analyzed. It probably will say something like, what you say is being analyzed to improve the way we can answer your questions.
Okay, I have two quick last ones. One for all of you, and one specific one for Julie. Julie, you mentioned when you announced the Start AI, the scoop you gave us, that 10 organizations were going to be selected during the call that starts in April and is operational for 6 weeks. On the basis of what are these public entities? On the basis of which criteria do you select these organizations? That might be interesting for people in the audience.
All the criteria are obviously outlined in the call, so it's very transparent. But basically, it's a mix of every entity has to submit an online form with a motivation on why they want to participate in the Startia. And so we really look at, we want to have a representation of different types of activities, of different types of organizations. So we're not going to only take all the same organizations, let's say, but then obviously it's really looking at it's the different types of, it's really the information that they will provide to us. There's a list.
They have to pitch.
It's very clear. I recommend the interested person to read the call when it's going to be available in beginning of April.
Okay, and my last question, and then we have to switch to the survey. I've heard a lot of all your great initiatives that you're working on for the citizens, obviously as government. Do you also do tracks where you involve the citizens and where you co-create with them or use their input for initiatives that you're working on or that you want to do? Which is a question for, I think, Hans, Anaïs, especially. And Julie, of course.
Well, there is in Flanders an initiative in the framework of this AI plan for what's called AMAI. And AMAI is indeed the use of AI for maatschappelijke problemen, so for societal problems. Mm-hmm. And there is explicitly the goal to have projects proposed by citizens. So there it's not government or researchers looking to solve a particular problem. The whole goal of this attempt is to invite citizens to come with societal problems and then ask for an AI solution.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Nothing specific?
No, we wish we could do much more. Our focus is clearly on companies right now. Citizens will be for sure next steps.
Okay, thank you. Before we conclude, I would like to introduce Joep Kromvoets, who's a professor and research manager at the KU Leuven in the Instituut van de Overheid, the Public Governance Institute, where he holds the chair on information management in the public sector. And he's been involved in 50 research projects related to lots of stuff that I'm not going to explain in detail, has written more than 400 scientific papers. So he's going to talk to us about an AI mapping survey that we are planning, and I'm going to share his slides. If you give me a second, I think it's that one. Can you see them?
Yes, I can see them.
Okay, you go ahead.
And I would like to first congratulate the organizers for hosting this excellent AI4GOV session. It was a real joy for me to listen. I learned a lot from today, and a lot is happening in this context in Belgium. It's really wonderful. I'm also would like to be that I'm excited. I'm excited to for the survey on that I'm the opportunity to introduce you the AI. Please, the previous slides, please don't go too quickly. To the AI adoption within the public sector. So what we would like to do is in the next 5 minutes, I've only 5 minutes, is to inform you about this survey, and it would be really, really, really great if you could attend to this survey. It's not a job by myself, but I have the pleasure that we have a strong team behind me, or together that we do it. It is with Colin van Noort. He already has presented this morning. He's from Taaltech University, Estonia. Then we have my dear colleague Avery Tam from KU Leuven. And then the strong team is a backup from BOSA, Nathaniel Ackerman, and of course, last but not least, I'm sorry, Christine, I see I spelled your name wrongly. It's only with one T, Christine Kopers from BOSA as well. So let's go to the next slide, please. Yes, next slide. So I'm really excited, and we were as a team, we were very excited because we were informed that we would like to do a survey. And a survey really dealing about the status of artificial intelligence use, adoption in the public sector in Belgium. And because we were so excited to do this, we looked already to what are studies. And I have been already in this domain done some surveys around done in Belgium or in the European Union. Of course, we have looked to the European Commission, the AI Watch. We also saw that the OECD has done some interesting domains in it. And of course, AI4Belgium already launched the AI maturity initiative focusing on Belgian companies. And I think these are a source of inspiration for us. So this is an initiative, what I already mentioned. It's an initiative I really want to strengthen. It is to emphasize, it's the AI4GOV. It's an initiative from the AI4GOV initiative. And we are a team consisting of BOSA, KU Leuven, and Taaltech. And we really look forward to work on this. And the object, and it's quite a long list. We have listed 6 objectives. What we would like to know is to know really, to get a better insight, what our Belgian civil services mean with the term artificial intelligence. I have the feeling when we talk about artificial intelligence that every one of us here in this meeting have a different meaning of what's the meaning of artificial intelligence. And we would like to figure out what is that. Then to assess the general level of the use of AI in Belgium. And in particular, we would like to focus on the use, the AI use in our wonderful public administrations. Then also to have a better understanding what we mean and what types of AI are really used in the Belgian administrations. And also we would like to know and to figure out what are the factors for the adoption, for successful usage of artificial intelligence at government institutions. But also we would like to know a lot of institutions, and particularly public institutions, do not know, use or have adopted artificial intelligence. And we would like to know why. And then to better grasp why public administrations aim to use AI. What is their motivation behind it? Next slide, please, Christine. So we have set up, we are working hard on this because we would like to launch it as soon as possible. This survey consists of a series of categories. First, of course, we would like a little bit better characterization. Who are our respondents? We would like to know what AI has been used and about AI adoption. We would like to have some questions formulated about that, about some usage aspects of AI, also the purposes of the use of AI or the non-use of AI. I would like to stress that as well. And what are the AI applications? And also what's the impact of AI? And I like, for example, the last question, is it really increase the digital divide or closens the digital divide? We would like to know all this kind of information from you. And of course, what are the key bottlenecks for the adoption or the usage of artificial intelligence? So let's go. Thank you, Christine. And you know when is the next slide, so I have not to tell that to you, is the call for participation. Our ambition is and our intention is that we would like to launch this survey in April 2021. And we really marked in red. The target group is everyone working somehow at the public administration in Belgium. So also, as you said, yeah, we are not using artificial intelligence in our administration. It's not applied to us for sure. You're also one of the target groups because we really would like to know why you are not using it. I think that's an important element as well. But the other ones who have adopted it or using it, please, please, please be involved in this questionnaire. We will give 1 month after launching the time to fill it in. It will be quite a short questionnaire with mainly closed questions, but maybe 2-3 open questions. And this will result in an AI for Belgium, AI4GOV working group report. And we hope that the AI for Belgium will allow us to present this survey outcomes in one of the AI for Belgium events. And of course, yes, we are scientists. We would like to publish a scientific paper out of it. But last but not least, I would like to stress and emphasize that your support will be essential to make the survey better in order to get a better insight of what is happening of artificial intelligence in the public administrations in Belgium. The floor is you. Back to you, Christine. You're muted. You're muted.
Okay, I said thank you for this warm and heartfelt call to action. This brings us to the end of our session. I will now ask Nathaniel, I hope he's still there, my colleague and the man who not only initiated, but also put together this past week to do a wrap-up or a closing of this second plenary AI4GOV session. Allow me in the meantime to say goodbye to all of our speakers, to thank you all for your contributions, to thank everyone in the audience for being here this afternoon and for everyone who's been watching the whole week. It's not finished yet. I'm sure Nathaniel has some stuff to talk about. Nathaniel, I give you the last word.
Thank you so much, Christine. Thank you for having organized this excellent session, and thank you to all the speakers. It was really high level. There is a great energy into each of the working group, and I thank you very much for that, because I think we will succeed in doing great things. As it was testified by this morning, also this morning session with 10 countries, we have decided together to organize the European AI Week next year. So it's so motivating. I just want to say that after this session, we have now the last keynote with Luc Van Gool and Frank Delart. So we have identified through this Belgian AI Week many Belgians abroad that are famous and that want to give their payback to Belgium, that want to contribute to what's happening now. Frank Delart is from Carnegie Mellon and now from Georgia Tech. He was a former student from Luc Van Gool, and they will speak about computer vision, autonomous vehicle, and drones. You have to know that Luc Van Gool is one of the top 3, maybe the top 1 researcher in Belgium in AI. He is affiliated to the KU Leuven and ETH Zurich. And these persons are really recognized worldwide. After that, I invite you to participate to the short closing ceremony at 6 p.m. So you go on the website, you push on the red button, and we will have like a relaxed time and a short wrap up of what has been done during this week. And it's quite amazing. Thank you to all. It's really the entire ecosystem in Belgium that organized that. And I leave you now to enter the next session. I hope you will follow me. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Have a nice weekend.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Thank you.